Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit True Off My Chest and it's by user BothImagination9855. My husband passed away and his ex-girlfriend wants me to adopt their kids. I need to share because I'm feeling so overwhelmed. Everyone in my life has an opinion, some very strong opinions, and I just want a place to vent and get some unbiased opinions. My husband died 1 week before Thanksgiving. We were unofficially separated at the time. We were not living together. I still loved him, but I had chosen to distance myself due to his drug addiction in hopes that he would seek treatment and get clean. He was seeking help, but it was not enough and he overdosed. He had trouble with drugs when he was younger, like college age, but he got clean and I believe he stayed clean for many years. He had a girlfriend back then who also became addicted to drugs and they had 2 kids. Ultimately, he got clean, had a good job and his life in order and was doing everything he was supposed to do and he was awarded custody of their 2 kids. I actually knew him back in elementary and middle school. We lost touch when we attended different high schools. We didn't meet again until after that first instance of addicted and recovery. He had been clean for a few years when we met. His kids were 5 and 3, and they're 10 and 8 now. Their mom had supervised visitation. I have no biological children of my own. He passed away, and I'm devastated over it. I can't really accept it yet, but I feel especially crushed for his children. They haven't had an easy time over the past year or so as he's dealt with his problems, and now they've suffered the ultimate loss. I remained in their lives even while we were separated and not living together. He moved back in with his parents and took his girls with him, but I still visited them often and remained involved in all aspects of their lives. I never called myself their mom, but I essentially was their mom on a day-to-day basis. I did all the things a mom would do. Now, their mom was recently arrested on a burglary-related charge and is in prison. This happened after he died. I thought she was doing better. She was at his memorial and seemed more together than many times in the past. She wrote me a very heartbreaking and heartfelt letter asking me to adopt her daughters. She basically admitted she doesn't know if she'll ever overcome her addiction and that she doesn't want the girls to go live with relatives on either side. She wants them to stay with me because it's what they know now and she feels they're safe. She said they asked her if they can come live with me and referred to my house, our former family house, as home. I wasn't expecting that at all. She hadn't been particularly fond of me before. She's been talking for years about how she's going to get clean for her girls and get custody of them again, and she actually had some good moments, but it never stuck. I feel like the world's worst person by not immediately saying yes. I haven't responded to her at all yet. I feel like the world's most evil person not immediately saying yes. I love those girls. I lived with them as essentially their mom for several years. I've worried about them every single day. Yet, why do I find myself thinking, do I really want to do this? I also don't even know if it'll be possible and or what kind of fight it'd be. I don't think his parents will agree so easily. I got along with his parents just fine, but they're big on family and they are absolutely destroyed by his death, so I can't imagine they'd let the girls go without a big fight. I can't help but wonder what kind of possibly lifelong mess I'd be getting myself into if I pursued this. Dealing with her, both sides of the girls' extended family, the trauma the girls will probably be dealing with forever because of their parents. I don't know that I'm strong enough to handle it all, and it makes me feel like a horrible human being. Well, OP, you're definitely in a very difficult situation, but you have no obligation to adopt these girls. But I believe the fact that you're asking yourself and you're going through this emotional struggle is because you care a lot for them. You mentioned it yourself. You love them. You have a bond with them. You feel like their mother, even though you aren't. I know it's easy to say, but don't feel bad that you're asking yourself these questions. These are the difficult questions you should ask yourself before you make a decision this big. I can't tell you whether to do it or not. I think the best that I can do is ask you what would feel right to you, taking into account your future, taking into account the girl's future, taking into account the type of relationship you would need to have with that family. And after weighing out all the pros and cons, if you still feel like this is something you'd want to do, then you should go ahead and do it. If not, then maybe you can stay in their lives in some other capacity. And what do you guys think about OP's situation? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Miyuki M says, a responsible person should spend some time thinking about it before answering. You are not a terrible person for needing to think through the logistics and carefully consider the impact on your life. Keep doing so until you arrive at a decision, and then commit to whatever you decide and don't look back. I say don't look back because whatever you decide will not be on a whim. You're going about this the right way. Trust yourself. The Nerd says, talk to the grandparents privately, not with the girls around. Share the mother's letter. They are probably the girl's legal guardian. You don't have to adopt if you don't want to, but you could continue to be present in their lives to provide additional stability. But if you want to adopt them and the grandparents are supportive, it shouldn't be hard to accomplish. The mom would have to terminate parental rights, which might not be an issue with her in prison, and the grandparents could willingly allow you to adopt. The rest is legal paperwork. The cost to perform it will be minimal compared to regular agency adoptions and whatnot. You just need to decide if you want to do this and can do it. You need the grandparents to agree, so talk to them, but know what you are willing to do before that conversation, and let the mom know too. She could always be allowed to see the girls in the future if it would be safe to do so. And KWard725 says, I can't imagine how you feel and sorry for your loss. What about the grandparents? Because you have no biological connection to these kids. You seem to be still going through enough on your own. Are you only doing this out of guilt, or do you really think you're the best option? Again, I can't imagine how you feel, but I wouldn't do it. Don't let anyone guilt you into making this kind of commitment. Additional information from OP's comments. His parents have temporary custody, but they wanted to be permanent. The girl's mother seemed to be doing well, and she was in the process of trying to get custody of them, so that's where things were at until we were sort of all surprised to hear she got arrested. She was doing everything she was supposed to be doing to show she could be a fit parent. We all had reservations, but she genuinely appeared to be doing well. Employed, looked healthy. She hooked up with a former boyfriend, and whenever the two of them are together, she relapses and they end up getting arrested. I love the girls and want them in my life, but I think there are ways for me to be in their lives without having custody of them. Of course, their grandparents would ultimately be the ones to control that if they ended up getting permanent custody, and they're still mad at me over separating from him. They're enablers. They don't realize it, and it comes from a place with good intentions, but they're the type who think they can just love him into getting clean, so they saw me as abandoning him. His family are good, hard-working people. No history of addiction there or anything beyond just him. Growing up, his parents were involved in everything with him and his siblings. Everyone at school knew who his parents were because they were involved in everything. He also has two adult sisters. The girls loved their grandparents. They liked spending time with them and going over to their house before they had to live there permanently. It's fun to visit grandma and grandpa, but living there full time is different. Our home was their home. It's where their bedrooms are, their pets, their lives. I don't know much about her family, but they don't seem as stable from what he told me and from what I've gathered in my internet spying. I would hope and pray that if they went to biological family, it would be his, especially since her family doesn't even live in this area, which would mean I definitely wouldn't have easy access to the girls. I've definitely thought about how it could impact my future. I mean, I'm still reeling from everything that's happened. A year ago, things were fine. This has all happened in the span of less than a year. I'm in no hurry to start a relationship with somebody new. I feel like I'm sort of at a point where I'm having to evaluate what do I want. I say that completely unrelated to the situation with the girls. I didn't expect to be in this position. I didn't marry him with the expectation that any of this would happen and he'd die, leaving me widow at 35. Even after he relapsed, I was still trying to determine if I could ever fully be with him again if he got clean. I hadn't decided completely against staying married. I wasn't ready to divorce him, but I was also starting to think, okay, if he gets clean and we stayed married, I probably will never have kids with him because that's a risk I can't take. Am I okay with that? However, if I wasn't willing to completely accept these girls into my life, I wouldn't have married him. We even talked in the past about me adopting them, and I would have if he was still alive and we were still together. It's just not as simple as playing mommy. They have a biological mom that's been involved in their lives to varying degrees over the years. They have biological family on both sides. They have paternal grandparents who I know will almost certainly fight to keep the girls with them. They will have a lot of trauma that not just anyone is fit to deal with. Well, the community definitely helped OP out with varying opinions on what they think she should do. So now, let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. I posted about all of this 3 months ago. Since then, I've decided to pursue custody of them. It was a huge decision and one that, while I spent a lot of time thinking about, I didn't have the luxury of taking too long. What finally tipped me over the edge was my former in-laws saying they didn't believe the girls should go to therapy to help them deal with their father's death and their virtually absent drug-addicted mother. It was shocking because what person in their right mind wouldn't think these girls should have all of the help they can get? At the same time, it wasn't surprising coming from them. They lived in denial of their son's problems too. They were the biggest enablers I ever met as well. They're extremely focused on image and achievement, just being the best, sports, competition. I believe they have good intentions, but that doesn't change how their actions affected their son, other children, or grandchildren. I never thought I'd be teaming up with my ex-husband's ex-girlfriend, but here we are. This isn't easy for her. No, she's not being a present or good mom, but I know she wishes she was. I know it's hard for her to admit she can't be their mom. Despite her problems and her track record of extreme selfishness, I can't imagine what it takes to give up custody of your children. I'm glad she's finally putting her own wants aside to do what she thinks is best for her kids. I'm also sorry for her that despite still having parental rights over the girls, she's not being granted the authority to allow them to be adopted by somebody she designates. I understand there needs to be safety measures in place to ensure children are placed with safe people, but I'm willing to do any sorts of evaluations needed to prove I can provide a safe and stable home for them. You'd think it'd be as simple as her terminating her parental rights and indicating that she wants me to adopt her children, and while that is part of the process, it's not actually that cut and dry. His parents, who again are obsessed with winning everything, have already tried to block this with the courts. They're basically trying to file some sort of injunction where if her rights are severed, they get first chance to adopt the girls. And they are trying to drag me through the mud in the process and frame it to look like I can't be a fit parent. I may be single, but they're in their 60s. The girls love them, but they don't want to live with them full time. Up until last summer, our home where they lived with me and their dad had been their home for almost as long as they could remember. I'm not wealthy, I support myself just fine, but I don't have reserves to fight this if they really want to take it that far, and the annoying thing is, I still get the sense that ultimately, they're doing this just because they want to win, and they also have an obsession with family and their family name. I never expressed any intention of trying to sever the relationship between them and the girls, even if I don't necessarily like or agree with certain things about them. I told them outright that I felt we all could and should be part of the girls' lives. The girls do love their grandparents and their aunts, my husband's sisters, neither of which has shown an interest in gaining custody of the girls. I think they need as many people who love them and care about them in their lives. And that even includes their mother's family, who I'd also grin and bear for their sake. I'm just so frustrated, and this isn't something that most people can easily relate to. I thankfully have many people who support me, even if they think I'm crazy for doing this at the same time. It's just that I suppose there's very little advice anyone can give me from experience. But thank you anyways for all your support. Well, OP, you're putting up the fight you need to put for these girls. It sounds like you do really love them and you want what's best for their future. So hopefully your ex-in-laws put their selfish wants aside and do what's best for the girls, just like her mother is trying to do. I don't know how long this process is going to take, but however long it is, I hope you can get through it to the end and keep the girls. So here's wishing you the best, OP. Thank you so much for sharing and take care. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance and it's by user Captain Maximus. Outrank doesn't mean outknow. The other day, my nephew was talking about joining the military and it reminded me of this incident from my Air Force days about 20 years ago. For a little background, when two people have the same rank, you use the date of rank, DOR, which is the date your new rank became effective, to determine who outranks who. So, if one person gets the rank in April and the other in August, then the April outranks August. Additionally, people who did time in JROTC, Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, in high school would be able to be immediately promoted to Airman First Class, E3 or A1C, upon completion of basic training. Those who did not and enlisted started at Airman Basic, E1, which is what I did. Fast forward 2 years and I am a recently promoted A1C, working as a munitions technician and had been at my current duty station for over a year. In that time, I had seen and done every munition operation that my shop did and knew what to do when the equipment decided to not cooperate. A month prior, 2 fresh airmen from basic and tech school arrived and one of them, who we will call Bob, was sporting A1C stripes. One day, our sergeant orders the 3 of us to process a UALS, Universal Ammunition Loading System. Basically, this is the big ammunition cylinder on wheels that is used to load the bullets into the guns on the fighter jets. Think Top Gun when they switch to guns. To do this, you attach the head of the UALS to a table that consisted of metal tray that fed into a little conveyor system that had slots that each bullet fell into, which then fed into corresponding slot in the UALS. The whole thing is run on a pneumatic gun that controlled the speed of the conveyor, and the more you squeezed the trigger, the faster it went. So, before we start the operation, Bob says that he is in charge because he outranks me. I shrug my shoulders and basically say, whatever, and we get to work with me controlling the air gun. We get into a pretty steady rhythm with them loading the ammo into the tray and it is feeding nicely into the UALs. At some point, Bob gets cocky and orders me to speed up. Now, the UALS has this quirk that it does not like to be ran at full speed or it will jam. When this happens, all you have to do is detach the UALS head and reattach it, making sure these teeny tiny pin is in place. If you don't, then no matter how many times you take it off and put it back, it will still be jammed. Of course, seeing that I have done this exact operation countless times before, I knew this, but Bob was in charge, so away we go. As you can expect, the whole thing jams pretty quickly, and Bob and the other guy are confused why they can't get it running. I just sit there quietly waiting for them. As it goes, what should have been a 15-minute operation takes almost an hour. Our sergeant enters the bay and is surprised that we have not finished yet and decides to investigate. Bob tells him that the machine is jammed and we are trying to fix it. The sergeant glances at me and I simply say, Bob said he was in charge because he outranked me. The sergeant gets a half smirk, which Bob didn't see, because he knows I know how to fix it. He turns to Bob and says, well, if you're in charge, then it is your responsibility. Bob gets flustered and basically tries to backpedal. The sergeant says, well, did you ask everyone on your team? He, of course, means me, and when Bob shakes his head, he turns to me and says, OP, do you know how to fix this? I immediately say, yes, sir, and proceeded to take 10 seconds to fix the issue and get it running smoothly. Bob understandably is subdued, and the sergeant orders us to finish up and places me in charge, but not before telling Bob, outrank doesn't mean outknow. The sergeant leaves and 5 minutes later, we finish. From that day on, Bob never pulled rank on me again. Well, OP, he was in charge, and eventually I think he learned a good lesson in quote-unquote leadership. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.